Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth from Memphis, from Rhodes College, and I'm going to talk to you today about ungrading. And so I'm going to share my screen with you now so that you can see my presentation, and I'll just walk us through it. So unleashing ungrading, universal design for learning as a leveler for language learners. And so what I'm going to talk about a little bit today are just some principles at first, and then I'll tell you exactly what I do in terms of ungrading. So universal design for learning, first of all, it seeks to address the disabilities of schools rather than students. And instructors who utilize this kind of design recognize flaws in structures and institutions that disadvantage students with disabilities as well as those without. So that's why it's called universal. So ungrading, what is that? Ungrading is using evaluation and motivational methods other than traditional number grades in order to enhance learning potential. So a concept in educational studies, this has been used since the late 1960s. And so it's not exactly something new. One of the goals is reducing anxiety, and I'll talk to you why that goes with UDL. So language anxiety is something specific to our discipline, to language disciplines in general. And this is a specific type of anxiety that a lot of students experience, particularly surrounding languages. Students avoid language classes or they avoid them beyond the requirement due to some specific concerns. They feel disadvantaged compared to other students. This is almost a universal condition of students in language courses. And then fear of the unknown or fear of getting it wrong, especially if you have high achieving students, they really don't like to get things wrong. And so this is a real fear. And then fears surrounding grades or holding up one's GPA, et cetera, and feeling like language is going to hinder them in some way. And so the way that I'm addressing those anxieties is through ungrading. We also have rising rates of students with psychiatric diagnoses. And so that's something also that needs to be addressed. Some of the psychiatric disorders that students might be diagnosed with are generalized anxiety, major depressive disorder, bipolar, PTSD, schizophrenia, et cetera, et cetera. And so through the use of medication that we have now, students are able to go to college who have these disorders, but we have to be able to recognize that as one of the possible disabilities that students can have, psychiatric disabilities. And so why ungrading? Well, I'm using the principles of universal design for learning to address the needs of generally anxious students, any students, and then specifically those who suffer from psychiatric disabilities. And so how do I actually do this is the real question. I'm sure that's questions that that's a question that a lot of you have. And so I'll give you some principles that I go by and then how I approach those. And so this is how I personally do it. There are many ways to design ungrading. First of all, I use standards-based evaluation. What do I mean by that? Well, when students begin my classes, an addendum to the syllabus tells them exactly what standards they have to meet in order to receive an A, a B, a C, etc. And so here are the standards for A, B, and C. I can talk to you a little bit about what quests are when we have our roundtable at the conference. But anyway, and then also how I deal with plus and minus grades, D's and F's. But all of these categories are standards that students know they have to meet in order to receive the grade they want to receive. And so that's one of the ways that I approach ungrading. I don't do chapter tests. I do what I call lounge checks, which are on specific grammatical structures. So each lounge check would only cover one or two structures. They have them weekly. I drop the two lowest. And then basically to achieve the grade they want to achieve, students meet the standards that I mentioned before or not. And so I also use what I call proficiency-based grading, and I can tell you what that is as well. First of all, I don't use numbers again, I use marks. And so you have a check plus, a check minus, and an X. So a check plus is highly proficient. A check is proficient. A check minus is acceptable. And an X is no score or unacceptable. And so again, when I do the syllabi for each of my classes, you have proficiency-based grading standards written out as a part of the syllabus. And so this is how I've determined what categories are what levels of proficiency in a third semester course. Obviously that varies from course to course, but I'm using really clear non-educational jargon type language so that students know what they're getting. And so I have not only this is for homework and learning checks and for the written final, but I also have ones for participation and also if they do any kind of presenting. And so this is what I do in terms of just everyday grading type stuff. So what have my results been? Well, students have reported to me that they indeed feel less anxiety. It makes the class more about German, less about grades. And it allows students to focus on what's important. These are things that students have reported to me. And so you may have some more questions, and I hope that you will come to our roundtable panel and ask those questions. And then I'm happy to share any materials that I have that might help you adapt this method for your classes. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the conference.